Close your eyes and swallow. Easy. You didn't even think about it. Your throat did all the work, a smooth wave of muscle pushing the food down. Now, imagine you couldn't do that. Imagine the only way to get your dinner down was to pull your own eyeballs deep into your mouth and shove the food down your throat with them. That isn't a horror story. That is how a frog eats lunch. Every single time. A frog's swallow is one of the strangest mechanical events in the animal kingdom, and for most of history, nobody could actually watch it happen. It's fast. It happens inside a closed mouth, behind skin, and behind bone. Then, biologists pointed an X-ray camera at a feeding frog, and what they saw rewrote the textbook on how amphibians eat. Start with the problem. You have a throat built for the job, a long, muscular tube, the esophagus, that squeezes in waves and moves food down, whether you're sitting up, lying flat, or hanging upside down. A frog has no such luxury. Its swallowing muscles are weak, its throat is short. On muscle power alone, a frog simply cannot move a struggling insect from its mouth into its stomach. And the insect is struggling. A frog doesn't chew. It has no real teeth to speak of, just a few tiny ridges. So the beetle, or the cricket, or the worm goes down whole, alive, fighting the whole way. The frog needs raw pushing force, and it needs it immediately, before dinner crawls back out. It all starts with the tongue. A frog's tongue is a sticky, spring-loaded weapon that fires out, slaps onto the prey, and whips back into the mouth faster than you can blink. But catching the bug is only half the battle. Now there's a live animal sitting in a mouth with no good way to push it any further. The catch is the easy part. The swallow is the hard part. So evolution reached for the nearest heavy object, the eyes. A frog's eyes are enormous compared to its skull, and they don't just sit on the surface. They bulge up on top, but they also reach deep down, into the roof of the mouth. Only a thin sheet of tissue separates the back of each eyeball from the inside of the mouth. The eye and the mouth are almost the same room. When a frog swallows, it blinks. But this is no gentle blink. The frog fires a set of muscles that yank both eyeballs downward, dragging them into the skull. The eyes sink. And because the floor of the eye socket is the roof of the mouth, the eyeballs bulge down into the mouth and press directly on the food. Picture two soft pistons dropping from the ceiling. That is the insect's final view. The eyeballs come down like a compactor, squeezing the prey against the bottom of the mouth and shoving it backward into the throat. The frog is, quite literally, swallowing with its eyes. Translate that to your own body for a moment. To eat the way a frog eats, you would clench your eyes shut, feel both eyeballs sink centimeters down through your skull, and use them to mash your food into the top of your throat. Then pop them back into place and do it again with the next bite. A frog does this thousands of times in a lifetime and never gives it a second thought. For most of history, all of this was a guess. Anatomists could see that frog eyes sat suspiciously close to the mouth. Naturalists noticed that frogs scrunch their eyes shut whenever they eat. But proving the eyeball actually moved through the skull meant looking inside a living frog while it swallowed. That meant X-rays. In a now classic study, biologists fed northern leopard frogs and filmed them with high-speed X-ray video. The footage was undeniable. As each frog swallowed, the bright outline of the eyeballs dropped straight down into the mouth, squashed against the prey, and snapped back up the instant the food was through. Every single swallow used the eyes. And they measured it. In leopard frogs, the eyeballs retract several millimeters with each swallow. That is a huge distance for an animal that small, and they cover it in a fraction of a second. Slow the swallow down frame by frame, and you can watch the whole cycle. The eye drops, the throat empties, the eye returns. No eye movement, no meal. The eyes don't even work alone. The floor of the mouth pushes upward at the same instant, so the prey gets pressed from below and above at once, pinned and driven backward in one coordinated squeeze. But it's the eyes that supply the muscle the throat is missing.